and times of Indira Gandhi. To start the program, I would like to request Honorable Chairman, Executive Council, Shri Niveen Mishra ji, to deliver the welcome address.
It is a great privilege for all of us, members of Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya and Library, and also our very distinguished guest, to welcome Dr. Karan Singh, who very kindly agreed to deliver a lecture on life and times of Indira ji. As we are aware, Dr. Karan Singh has had a long and distinguished public life covering more than 70 years of India's after independence. We are also very fortunate that he has been associated with this institution since it was founded in 1966 and has played an important role in building it over the decades as first the Vice President of the institution, later the member of the council, and then the chairman from 2005 to 2015. Dr. Karan Singh is one of the best representatives of eminent scholars in Indian culture and civilization. Our Sanatan values, beliefs and practices find their true expression in the life of Dr. Karan Singh. He has said in his autobiography how after reading Plato's Republic as a teenager, the concept of philosopher king had become an ideal for him. There is no doubt that he has lived up to that ideal and is a living example of Rajarshi or philosopher king. Born in 1931, the Yuvraj of the biggest princely state in India dedicated his life in the pursuit of knowledge and public service. His political career began in 1949 when he was appointed as regent. As a young man with vision, he believed that national service and also service to the state can best be accomplished by joining the national stream. Therefore, he decided to participate in the nation building of the newly independent India by accepting the post of regent at the young age of 18, which was very much his personal decision. Later, in 1952, he was appointed Sadr Riyasat of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. His presence during critical years of transition helped the integration of the state with the rest of the country. Dr. Karan Singh has said that his life, it seems, to be divided in distinct periods of 18 years each. The first 18 years were spent as a student and Yuvraj. The next 18 years, he worked in Jammu and Kashmir as regent, Sadr Riyasat, and later governor. In 1967, he became the youngest cabinet minister at the age of 36 when he joined Mrs. Indira Gandhi's Council of Ministers, and the next 18 years were spent by him in national politics. Between 1967 and 1980, Dr. Karan Singh handled very many important ministries such as tourism and civil aviation, health and family welfare, education and culture. Between 1989 and 1990, he was a very respected Indian ambassador in the United States. From 2005 to 2014, he was the president of the Indian Council of Cultural Relations. The state of Jammu and Kashmir, founded by his illustrious ancestors, starting out from Jammu, achieved the remarkable feat of the conquest of a frontier region and of the creation of a large, stable, princely state which remained in existence for more than a century. Also, the religious and spiritual aspects of the life of Dr. Karan Singh is well known. Around 1950, he came under the influence of the ideas of Sri Aurobindo, on which he later did his doctorate. He also, during the same time, or almost the same time, came under the influence of Sri Krishna Prem, who was originally British, but decided to settle in India and devote his life to spiritual pursuits. Vedanta is the high point of Indian knowledge tradition, and Dr. Karan Singh has both studied the Upanishad in depth and tried to imbibe their teachings in his life. Consequently, the breadth of his knowledge covers religious and spiritual areas rooted in the ancient traditions of India, but explained and understood even with the modernistic features. He is a great devotee of Shiva. He has written a number of books such as Towards a New India, Hymn to Shiva, and other poems, the sterling book of Hinduism, Examined Life, among others. Dr. Karan Singh has completed 518 period of his remarkable life. Currently, he is going through this span of the 618th year period. We definitely would like him and wish him all the success so that he can continue to serve and guide this country. Our respected speaker today will enlighten us on the life of our ex-Prime Minister, Mrs. Gandhi. Few words. Mrs. Gandhi, granddaughter of Sri Motilal Nehru and daughter of Sri Jawaharlal Nehru, was born in Allahabad on November 19, 1917. Mrs. Gandhi was actively involved in the freedom struggle. In her childhood, she founded the Bal Charkha Sangh, and in 1930, the Vanar Sena of children, to help the Congress party during the non-cooperation movement. She was imprisoned in September 1942 and worked in riot-affected areas of Delhi in 1947 under Mahatma Gandhi's guidance. She became a member of the Congress Working Committee in 1955 and the President of the Indian National Congress in 1959. She was Minister for Information and Broadcasting in the government of Sri Lal Bahadur Ji. Then she held the highest office as the Prime Minister of India from January 1966 to March 1977, and again from January 1980 till her demise on 31st October 1984. As Prime Minister, late Mrs. Gandhi served the country for 16 years. During the first few years of her tenure, when the country was facing food crisis, Mrs. Gandhi took forward the Green Revolution, the slogan of Lal Bahadur Ji, which had started and made the country self-sufficient in food. The Bangladesh War of 1971 was doubtless her finest hour, when in response to a great humanitarian crisis in what was then East Pakistan, she boldly supported the Bangladeshi liberation movement led by Mukti Bahini and helped secure their independence from tyranny of our neighbor. She took separatist forces head on and ultimately sacrificed her life for the sake of the unity of the nation. Today's lecture on Srimati Gandhi is part of our academic initiative. The inaugural lecture series was delivered on 20th January 2023 by former President of India, Sri Ram Nath Kovind. The second lecture on Sri Jawaharlal Nehru ji was delivered by Honorable Governor of Kerala, Sri Arif Muhammad Khan, on 19th April. The third lecture of the series on Sri Lal Bahadur ji was delivered by eminent economist and former chairman of Business Standard, Sri T.N. Nayanan, on 7th July 2023. It was on that day that we all requested Dr. Karan Singh to accept our invitation to address, and he was very, very kind to accept our request for speaking on this economy. As you all know, the Sangrahalaya is a tribute to every Prime Minister of India since independence, and a narrative record of how each one has contributed to the development of our nation over the last 75 years. It is a history of collective effort and powerful evidence of the creative success of Indian democracy. The Sangrahalaya, which was opened for the public in April last year, has emerged as one of the top tourist destinations. You'll be happy to note that about 6 lakh people have already visited the Sangrahalaya. Honorable Prime Minister Sri Modi was very keen that the Sangrahalaya must have specific learning and inspirational events for the students. To encourage his students, who are the future leaders of the country, we have launched a new program. Now we invite young students broadly from class 9 to 12 from Delhi schools. This time, in this lecture, the director CBSE was very kind, and she has made a special selection of 20 children to participate in this lecture who are here in the hall. Each such lecture series, our young children, they are expected to write an essay on our ex-Prime Minister. In today's case, Madam Gandhi. It is then evaluated in Sangrahalaya, and 3 best essays will be awarded. In fact, of the last lecture, the 3 best evaluated, the students have been requested to come today for accepting the certificate and the award. Depending on the quality of the essays, we would also encourage its display at the reception of the Sangrahalaya. With these words, I am very honored, personally very honored, to request a very eminent speaker, a very respected.
Now, taking the program forward, as our Honorable Chairman has mentioned, there are among us here students whose essays have been judged among the 3 best. Their names are Arjun, Rahul and Vishal in that order. So I would request them to come on the stage and take the certificate of merit and a token of appreciation from respected Dr. Karan Singh.
Director, Deputy Director of the institution, members of the audience, dear children. It is a privilege for me in this new series of lectures that has started on the Prime Ministers to be asked to speak on Indira Gandhi, a woman of indomitable courage, fierce determination, and powerful, unswerving patriotism. Our first and only woman Prime Minister so far, she is someone who will always be remembered for all that she did for the country. In fact, it is fascinating for me to look back on the freedom of India, because I'm older than India. India only began free India in 1947. I was 16 years old. So I have seen the whole drama, saga of Indian freedom. And I have known each and every Prime Minister, even if they were there for a short while, or for the Pandit Maharaja, he was Prime Minister for 17 years. I've met them all, and I think it's a very good idea to have a lecture on each one of them. I am particularly happy and delighted to be here in this Nehru Memorial Museum, Nehru Memorial Auditorium. Because let me tell you how this was built. Panditji passed away in 1964. Lal Bahadur Ji flatly refused to move into the So there was a committee under Zakir Saab, Dr. Zakir Hussain, who was Vice President at the time, including Padmaja Naidu, P.N. Haksar, and Indira Ji, and myself. So we sat and decided, what should we do with this building? This is a beautiful building. We don't want it just to disintegrate or be used as some kind of an office. So there it was decided to make it into a museum and library. That is how the idea was. That's how in 1966, 2 years later, we were able to open this institution, and it has made a name for itself over these last 75 years. Even though the overall name of the institution has changed to the Prime Minister's Museum, which I think is to be welcomed in the sense that everybody gets a chance. Nonetheless, this Jawaharlal Nehru Museum, which is the first building and heritage Latin building, this will always remain very special. And I am told that now the Nehru Museum also has been redone and updated. And so there is no question of it being diluted. There was some fear that once the name is changed, there will be an attempt to dilute this institution. That I am sure with people like Nipendaji and Surprat would not happen. In fact, it needed upgradation and updating, which I believe has been done. Now, I met Indira Ji first in 1949, soon after I became regent. I was 18 years old then. So from 1949 to 1964, 35 years that I was in touch with Indira Ji. And I remember having breakfast here. I stayed as a house guest in Teen Murti. And for breakfast there was Panditji, Indira Ji, Rajiv, Sanjay and myself. And I realized later that there were 3 prime ministers at that breakfast. One sitting prime minister and 2 future prime ministers. So it was a great pleasure. Maharaja was my mentor politically. I grew up reading his books, The Discovery of India, the autobiography, and that is what really fired my imagination and impelled me to want to become part of the national movement. So I was then 10 years, as you know, in Indira Ji's cabinet. Not very many people lasted for 10 years at a stretch. Even the very near ones didn't last for 10 years. So I was with her through the triumph of Bangladesh and the tragedy of emergency. So both her high point and low point, I was there in that cabinet all the time. Now the first few years when we met Indira Ji, she was doing hostess at Teen Murti. She would organize these dinner parties. As you know, the Maharaja was the head of the non-aligned movement. So we met here people, President Nasser would come, Sukarno from Indonesia would come, Archbishop Makarios from Cyprus would come. So there were people from all over the non-aligned world who used to come here, and there were lunch parties and dinner parties. And Indira Ji was very meticulous about the menus. I remember once we were in Jammu and so she called me, she said, will you and Asha come to dinner tomorrow? Why? Because Jacqueline Kennedy is coming. So Jacqueline Kennedy was also here. So we had all sorts of interesting people here. And people thought that she would only be a sort of a hostess there. But we knew, people who knew her well were quite clear that her real, abiding and fierce interest was politics. And gradually we saw her developing, becoming more and more political and more influential. Now, I was in a bit of a dilemma when I was asked to speak, because there's so much material on Indira Ji that I decided not to go chronologically. I'll just try and speak of my personal interaction with her. So that I think will be more interesting. Chronologically you can read, there are lots of biographies. A very good short one by Indira Malhotra, which I reread. But I'm not going to go chronologically. I'm going to go on my personal experience. So let me start with my cabinet experience. Now, as it turned out, alphabetically, my chair came directly opposite her. There was the Prime Minister, all the other people like that, and my name came directly opposite her. So I got a first-hand experience of how she ran the cabinet. The idea that she was very dictatorial and would not let anybody speak is totally and absolute nonsense. In fact, the reverse was true. Let me tell you, she let people speak for so long कि कभी-कभी मुझे quietly कहना पड़ेगा आगे चलें. Otherwise she was stuck at that point. So the question of her being dictatorial didn't arise. If anything, she leaned in there and let people talk to her. As you know, some ministers particularly have the habit of talking more than they should. So बड़ी मुश्किल से used to get through the cabinet minutes. She was very lenient. And the first 2 years at Gandhi was fascinating to see. She would sit there, next to her was the Deputy Prime Minister, Maharaja. severe, grim, forbidding, and unsmiling. Never smiled as far as I'm aware. I've never seen him smile. He was a very fine man, a great patriot, and he became a prime minister. Ultimately, money gave. The point is that he was there, and he was there. I could see the vibes, negative vibes between them, but there was never any clash. They were always very polite to each other. Raji was also very polite, and so was Indira. But it was a very interesting thing to see how this relationship played out. Of course, Maharaja didn't last very long. I joined in '67, and '69 the party split, and that was the first split in the Congress party, where MC against for election was elected. Now I tell you one or two special incidents. The story of Project Tiger. आप लोगों ने सब पढ़ा होगा, सुना होगा Project Tiger. If you do not know how the tiger became the national animal, इसको क्रेडिट देते आप क्रेडिट तो देते नहीं हैं कुछ किसी. She asked me one day, will you take over the Indian board for wildlife? Maharaja Mysore, a very fine man, Maharaja, but he wasn't very active. So she said, I want to activate this, will you take over the chairmanship? I said, certainly, I love wildlife. हमारे कश्मीर में भी wildlife होते हैं, हांगोल वगैरह होते हैं. So I took it over. In the first meeting, of course, there were just introductions. Second meeting, I realized to my surprise that at that time the national animal was not the tiger, it was the lion. None of you know that. Not even the senior people remember. I think because of the Ashoka lions on our stambh, is the lions. I said to myself, lion is only found in one part of the country. It's a very important part of the country. Our prime minister is from there. I don't want to dedicate that part at all. Movie वहाँ से शेर निकले हैं एक और. Later I said, no, this is wrong. The tiger is ubiquitous. You get the tiger from Himachal Pradesh down to Kerala, and you get it from Rajasthan all the way to Assam and beyond. The Sundarbans. So we passed a resolution in that board requesting the Prime Minister to change the national animal from the lion to the tiger. I took it to Indira, she got it through cabinet, and that is how I made the national animal the tiger. My first name also happened to be Tiger, but that had nothing to do with it. Although my enemies claim that was why I made it. So, and then what did we do? We started Project Tiger. So Indira was the first chairman. I was the whatever it was, executive chairman, and K.S. Shankara, a very fine forest officer from Rajasthan, he became the first project director. We started with 9 projects. And at that time, the tiger population was dwindling rapidly. Thanks to two things. The feudal British always wanted to have a tiger killed, governor and the viceroy. And my old Baradari, the Indian princes. There was one prince who had said, I've killed 100 tigers. I mean, the man was shocked, he should be locked up. I mean. How can you kill such beautiful animals? Everybody said, Sher Mara, humne Sher Mara. So, first of all, we had to do stop tiger safari. There was one member of the Council of Ministers, I won't mention the name, who used to run one safari. We stopped the tiger safari. We set up this Project Tiger. I inaugurated it formally on the 13th of April, Vaisakhi, in 1972 from the Corbett National Park. That was the formal inauguration of Project Tiger. Now you see, as a result of that, and now it's grown to I think 56 or 57 tiger reserves we've got. So that I think was an important event, and it shows that Indira was very open when you gave her this suggestion. There was no problem. She didn't say, "Nee, kaise badlenge?" Badlana, so she changed it. Secondly, let me talk about a keen interest in the natural environment. She was a lover of nature. She loved Kashmir. She would go there whenever possible. I remember Panditji, when he used to come, he invariably came with him. And I remember them playing badminton in Lachi Ram, which was my father's game resort and became a sanctuary. And she loved beauty in the Himalayas and all. So when the first United Nations Conference on the Human Environment, which has become so important now, climate change and all, the first conference was held in 1972 in Stockholm, and I was there. I was on the Indian delegation. Indira ji led the delegation. There were only two heads of government who led their delegations. Indira ji from India, Olof Palme from Sweden. And tragically enough, both were assassinated. So that was a very important development, because that was the first time that the United Nations took cognizance of the human environment. And now we see how many years later, so 72, half a century later, how climate change is upon us and is sweeping us away. That is where it all began. So any further conference should be Stockholm plus 10, not Rio plus 2. Rio came after Stockholm. We should start counting from Stockholm, 1970. And I'll share with you, I wanted the UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program, to be based in India. But Africans are very strong. They wanted it in Kenya. Jomo Kenyatta, the legendary leader, was also there. So we couldn't say no. Indira said, nahi, inko aap karne do. So it is now in Nairobi. In the last 50 years it has been there. And the Stockholm Declaration was the first United Nations declaration on the human environment. That is also something that we did. Third episode that I'll share with you was an Afro plane. I don't know whether any of you remember, there used to be a plane called an Afro. It was built in India. It was built in Bangalore, and I remember getting the first one and giving it to Sir Singh. And I remember Charan Singh was the chief minister. So the card was Charan Singh, Saran Singh, Karan Singh. I had the whole card put out again. And I went there as aviation minister. Saran Singh presented it to me, and Chaudhry Charan Singh was there as chief minister. That plane was a very good plane, and there were questions raised about its safety. And there was one view, one lobby rather, I would say, I won't name the lobby, which wanted to disprove that it was not good. I have defended it very strongly. My colleague, Surojini Maheshi, the Minister of State, she defended it very strongly in the Rajya Sabha. And Avro crashed. Now, Avro crashed just at the time when this controversy was on. When we didn't know the cause of the crash. I said, no, I have now got to resign. So, I took responsibility, resigned, sent in my letter of resignation, announced it in the Republic. Car was okay, nahi. I have to resign. But you know, this is 3 days Indira ji ne apne paas rakha. She kept that with her for 3 days. After which she didn't accept it. Probably the first time in her whole life that she did not accept anybody's resignation. Otherwise, there was lots of resignation that she accepted. Many resignation. Later on, by the way, there was an inquiry, and it was shown that the crash was due to pilot error, nothing to do with it. But that was much later. Anyhow, this is just an episode. Now, during the first term, Representative 69, abolition of privy purses. I was a privy purse holder. अब ये सारे प्रिंसेस ने कहा तुम वहाँ बैठे हो तो तुमको बेईमानी कर रहे हो हमारे साथ. हमारे सारे रिश्तेदार वगैरह सब जो all princes I know from बचपन से जानता था मैं. But what was I going to do? I have taken the jump into democracy. I can't now go back and say नहीं मैं privy purse की वजह से I'm going to resign. मैं कहा ठीक है privy purse भारत माता को हालांकि it wasn't a very big sum looking back. The total amount involved through the party was hardly 10 crores a year. कोई बड़ी बात नहीं थी. It wasn't really a matter of that she had broken so many solemn agreements. But it was part of her populist program. If you remember, she did 20-point program, bank nationalization. So this was one of those things mainly put forward by the socialists. Chandrasekhar, Mohan Dharia, ये एक सोशलिस्ट लॉबी था वहाँ और वो मेरे भी बड़ी विरुद्ध था. पता नहीं आई डोंट नो व्हाई दे वर अगेंस्ट मी. ये महाराजा कहाँ से आ गए यहाँ बैठ गया हमारे में, बताओ. अब मैं पिताजी महाराजा तो मेरा भी उसमें दोष क्या है, मैं भी महाराजा. बट टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग when my father passed away, his great father passed away in 61, I was recognized by the government of India as the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, Maharaja. But I decided in a statement I would not use my title because I was in politics. So that was a dramatic house. Lok Sabha was there. मैंने कहा मैं क्या करूँ, बोलना चाहिए. मैंने इंदिरा जी सामने बैठी थी, मैं नज़दीक आते बच्चे कर तो she wouldn't ask me to speak. It's only when I said no, I got up and I made what I think was quite an important speech. It's one of those speeches because, you know, for me to have to say that to support the people's abolition was not an easy thing to do. It was a painful thing to do personally. But when you take a decision, you choose between feudalism and democracy, then you've got to pay for it. So ultimately I put that whole thing into the Haritara Charitable Trust in the name of my parents. So वहाँ डाल दिया. Ultimately it was defeated in the Raj Sabha by one vote. Then she brought in an ordinance. So she was a very tough woman, she wouldn't take no for an answer. It was passed in the Lok Sabha. In the Raj Sabha it was defeated by one vote. Till she had an ordinance, it was passed. So that was another thing. And that was part of her thing in 71, if you remember, Garibi Hatao. That was her slogan. Log कहते हैं इंदिरा हटाओ, मैं कहती हूँ गरीबी हटाओ. So all these measures, these populist measures that she took, bank nationalization and 20-point program and abolition of 3%, this is not part of that. And so in 1971, when the elections came, we won comfortably. She also won and I also won my second. By then I got into parliament on the first election from Udhampur, on by election. This is the second election. Now let me come to her finest hour. The finest hour, the most dramatic event during my 10 years as cabinet minister was the Bangladesh drama. It began when one of our planes was hijacked. One of my planes, I was aviation minister, was hijacked. Nautam Saigal rang me, said one of our planes has been hijacked, if you remember. And then it built up and built up. And then when there were elections in Pakistan, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman won the majority, 160 out of 300 seats. But the Punjabis were never good at these what do they call them? Bingos. They look down upon the Bengals. The Bingos, they're not going to give them. They refused to hand over power to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And then, of course, not only did they not do that, when there was an uprising, massive uprising then in East Pakistan, and it was crushed by Yahya Khan, Bhutto, and Tikka Khan. And they killed thousands of people. And thousands of people were so thrown into jail and tortured and killed. It was a terrible matter. And the refugees started coming. 10 lakh hai, 20 lakh hai, 50. You know, we were all astonished. Indira ji kya karenge, kya nahi karenge. But she was very cool. She knew what should be done. So, relax and relax. Ultimately, it became a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented. It was 1 crore people almost came across as refugees. Now that was the both of us, we couldn't accept that. So what Indira ji did was, first of all, she started traveling around the world, and sent her ministers around different countries to explain the position and to call for what she called a political settlement, meaning a settlement between Yahya Khan and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. I was sent to GDR, Bulgaria, Romania and Yugoslavia. So I went there, Tudor was there at that time in power, and I went to Yugoslavia where President Tito was a remarkable man. I had been with him as minister in waiting when he came here, so I met him again and explained the whole situation to him. And they were all very shocked. So that went on. On the way back, I dropped in to see the Shahanshah of Iran. Raza Shah Pahlavi was still in power before Khomeini came in. And he was very worried because he was a Shia and Yahya Khan also happened to be a Shia, the president of Pakistan. He was particularly worried, I remember him asking me about that. But Indira ji kept her calm. We were all astonished. Kyun nahi kar rahi? But she knew what she had done. He called Sam Manekshaw. And earlier she had called him, Sam, you must do something. He said, I don't know, it's just rumor. He said, darling, I can't do it yet. You know how he was, Sam Manekshaw must have been there. He said, what do you mean? She said, no, I can't do it now, the barsat hai. All the rivers will be full. I cannot possibly cross. You have to wait. He waited, and then, when the time came, she struck. और महाभारत took 18 days, Nirmala ji, ये लड़ाई 13 दिन में खत्म हुई. That was the real strike. जब दो हिस्से कर दिए पाकिस्तान. स्ट्राइक करके बहुत होते हैं, हम इस स्ट्राइक को भी मानते हैं, लेकिन दैट असली स्ट्राइक वो था जब देश के टुकड़े उन्होंने केवल राजनीति भूगोल बनाया, उन्होंने एक नया देश बनाया. I remember, and it was going on, and she was waiting in her room and then when she got the telephone from where that Niazi had surrendered to General Arora, and then they could, she got the note. And I was sitting in the Lok Sabha, मेरी सीट पे उनके पीछे आती, and she never showed any emotion. But that day she virtually ran into the Lok Sabha and said, Mr. Speaker, I have an announcement to make. House is dead silent. Dhaka is now the free capital of a free country. And the house exploded. You can't imagine, none of you sitting here can imagine the way we felt when Bangladesh was free. जैसे हमारा देश जब free हुआ तो हमें इतनी प्रसन्नता शायद नहीं हुई होगी, क्योंकि because of all the terrible partition things that happened. But when Bangladesh was free, every Indian was so proud and so proud of our army and what they've achieved. So that was her finest hour. And when she went back to her chamber, she said to Sharda Prasad, who was her confidant and secretary, we must now order ceasefire in the West. If I don't do it today, I won't be able to do it tomorrow. She realized that in the euphoria of the victory, people would say, Khatam karo ji Pakistan, us taraf bhi hamla karo. She knew that that was not a good thing. The 7th Fleet, I'll tell you about the 7th Fleet also. When I was ambassador in Washington, Henry Kissinger called upon me. He was the famous Henry Kissinger who was the Secretary of State with Nixon. And he said, Ambassador, we knew that she was going to liberate Bangladesh. She is a patriot, we knew she was going to do that. Our only fear was that after that she would turn on West Pakistan. And that we were not prepared to allow, because it is West Pakistan that has given us the opening to China. The first American opening to China, if you remember, when Nixon went there, was given by Pakistan. So, what I am trying to say is, Indira realized that if she didn't stop the war that day, she wouldn't be able to do it because there would be so much euphoria. So that day she ordered, people had no time to listen to that. They were so happy with the victory in the East that not very much attention was paid to what happened in the West. So that was her finest hour. And then there was the Shimla Agreement. I must admit, friends, I was very disappointed with the Shimla Agreement. I'm afraid her closest advisors, D.P. Dhar, the minister, P.N. Haksar, P.N. Dhar, and Kao, they didn't reply. She let Bhutto off too easily. उस समय कह रहे थे उन्होंने to clinch the J&K issue. We had 93,000 troops as hostage, and a territory, I don't know how many thousand square miles. But we didn't strike a hard bargain there. I'm surprised. Indira is a very tough lady, but for some reason, I think it was P.N. Haksar really advised her. Bhutto said, मेरी आप मुझ पर यकीन विश्वास करो. क्या विश्वास करो? वो खुद फांसी जाएगी भुट्टो को वापस जा. And the idea was that India Park, the line of actual control would become an international country. That's what we were assured. It hasn't happened yet. 50 years later, still hasn't happened. So there I feel, I wasn't taken. I was in her cabinet too. मुझे नहीं लेगी, D.P. Dhar को लेगी. I mean, D.P. Dhar was a very fine man, I'm saying. But I had a little feeling that after it was my state, my father's state, if she had taken, but she was the judge of whom she needed. इससे बड़ी बात क्या हो सकती थी? अटल जी उस वक्त बीजेपी थी और नाम कुछ और था शायद, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा कि ये तो दुर्गा की तरह है. बहुत बड़ी बात है ऐसे. और हुसैन की पेंटिंग्स भी हैं showing her as a Durga. So she became so popular that then. Now, meanwhile, because I have noticed in politics, there is never anything totally positive or totally negative. There is always some things happening. When the best of times there is something bad happening, in the worst of times there is something good happening. So, what was happening was that, of course, after the Congress, then after elections, opposition was building up, led by two personalities, Jayaprakash Narayan and Maharaja Desai. Now, JP was a very fine man, I knew him, one of the finest people I have seen. And it is a tragedy. You know, Maharaja said to him, join me and be my heir. So, परिवार की बात कर रहे हैं और उनसे उनको कहा था जयप्रकाश जी को आप आइए, आप उत्तरदायी बनिए. Join me and be my heir. इससे ज़्यादा क्या कह सकते हैं? But the Socialist Party again was split. There were some people who wanted to join, like Ashok Mehta and others who finally came in. But there was Ram Manohar Lohia. I have never seen a man more bitter than Ram Manohar Lohia. जब बात करते तो he would literally quiver with anger. नेहरू की बात करते. Ram Manohar Lohia. He prevented JP from going into it. If JP had joined Panditji at that stage, the whole history of India would have been different. क्योंकि जयप्रकाश नारायण जैसे बढ़िया आदमी बहुत कम हो गए, लेकिन नहीं आने दिया उन्होंने. ये ग्रुप जो था, the hardline group led by Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, who is a great man, I don't want to engage him, who did not know it. So the thing was building up. But the real game changer came on June 12, 1975, when the Honorable Jagmohan Lal Sinha of the Allahabad High Court, on what I consider to be a sort of a technicality, कोई बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं थी. Apparently, some letter had arrived 24 hours late or something to do with Yashpal Kapoor and P.N. Haksar. On that basis, he unseated the Prime Minister. You see, there are some decisions which create havoc. There's just been one recently in Manipur, but I won't mention that. As a result, I mean, this was a bombshell. Here she was the most popular woman in the country, and the judge unseated. And when she debarred her from fighting an election for 6 years. Or when she appealed to the Supreme Court, Justice Iyer, who was the Krishna Iyer, the great judge, he was the vacation judge, vacation also. He said, no, you can, I'll give you a conditional stay, that you can go to attend Parliament, but you can't vote. In any case, by then, you know, and then the opposition thought that mauka aa gaya hai, ab Indira ji ko khatam karo. So the agitation built up. There was the Gujarat agitation led by Maharaja Desai, and the other agitation, and the whole thing built up and built up and built up. And while this was going on, I must tell you, when I have recorded this in autobiography, I wrote a private letter to Indira. मैंने कहा मैं आपको बहन की तरह, बड़ी बहन की तरह लिख रहा हूँ, writing to you as an elder sister, not as a member of your cabinet. I suggest that you should resign. Send your resignation to Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed. Let the president say, I don't accept it until the Supreme Court gives its final verdict. But at least you would have given the impression that you were prepared to resign. वो मैंने उनको लिख के भेजा, कोई जवाब आया नहीं, शायद उनको अच्छा लगा, अच्छा नहीं लगा होगा शायद. So that was the situation. So then one day, 26 June, in my bedroom, सुबह 6 बजे में गई, सुबह कौन कर रहा है? तो cabinet meeting at 7:30 morning. चलो, रुपया कपड़े लगाए, पहुंचे, dead silence कमरे में. ऐसे बिल्कुल एक वो भयंकर परिस्थिति जैसे थी, बिल्कुल कोई हिल नहीं रहा था, कोई बोल नहीं रहा था. Indira ji said, emergency has been declared. The opposition leaders have been arrested, and censorship has been introduced. So that, I'm afraid, that was her darkest hour. Because the emergency was not something which really fitted into our structure of thinking. And I remember after that cabinet meeting, there was only one person there who was my age. He was a full-fledged minister. He was Raja Pant, K.C. Pant. अच्छे मित्र थे हमारे, he was a good friend. Raja and I went for a drive. We spoke to each other and we said, we have क्या करें? Either we quit now, or we've got to stay deserted in the bitter end. सोच लो. We went for a long drive and then we said, देखो ऐसा है, she's been very good to us. Both of us are young people. She's given us a lot of importance. She's given us a lot. Radhakamth had a lot of very important ministries. So we can't now let her down at this time. Regardless of whatever we may feel, we have to stick with her. So we decided we were going to sleep. Then the emergency law came. Now that was very, very painful way. And let me now bring in a new character, Sanjay Gandhi. You see, there were two sets of people around Indira. The ones who encouraged her to do the emergency were people like Maharaja. Siddharth Shankar, I call him Maharaja all the time. Very dear friend. Siddharth Shankar, D.K. Barua, and the law minister who I think was Khanna someday at the time. Gokhale, Siddharth Shankar, and these people, they were the ones who I think had first of all suggested the emergency. But as soon as the emergency was involved, they were just brushed aside. And Sanjay Gandhi brought his own group of people in. V.C. Shukla, Chaudhary Bansilal, Om Mehta, and these were the people like Indira were sidelined, and So, at some point, Indira has also said later that the emergency was a mistake. She said that somewhere. She's quoted as saying that. So, what happened is we went through the whole problem arose because 20-point program was his program. Sanjay had a 5-point program. Us 5-point program, unfortunately, family planning became one of the programs. And I was Minister for Family Planning. In those days, we used to have targets for sterilization. But they were very moderate targets. Sanjay unilaterally raised the targets without asking me. And the sterilization began, some forced sterilization also. And all the chief ministers of North India, in order to please Sanjay, bent head over heels to try and increase the numbers like a Sanjay Khush hota hai. That was a disaster. The main disaster of the emergency was the sterilization program. It was my program. But my program was hijacked by my son, and he and I never shared a stage. He never came to my function, I never went to his, but we functioned independently. And then Sanjay was getting very, very powerful. He extended the emergency by 1 year, the parliament by 1 year. Many of us said, if elections had been taken within 6 months, it would not have been such a bad result. It was the extension of the parliament that really was the period when Sanjay thought that he and his group now was in power. And we were getting so powerful. We had a AICC meeting, I remember, in Calcutta. Sanjay was getting too powerful. So then she announced that apparently without consulting Sanjay, she announced elections in 1977. Now, that was a tough call. I think she was told by the intelligence bureau that she was very popular. The trouble with feudalism, let me tell you, I've seen this happen with my father. I've seen this happen with Indira. When you are very strong, you are only told what people think you want to hear. I'd like to say that it's a very gentle warning also, advice also. Gentle. You mustn't always ask people who you want to tell you what they're doing. You must ask people who do not like what you want to do. So why was my father was in that position? He came to grief. Indira was in that position. She came to grief. The 1977 elections wiped out. Every single member of Indira Gandhi's cabinet lost their seat except me. Irony. I was a Minister for Family Planning Health. I won my seat. I won my seat. Why? मुझे तो पता है लोग बड़े होशियार हैं भारतवर्ष के, वो सब जानते हैं आप चाहे कितना मर्जी उनको से करो, वो जानते हैं कौन क्या कर रहा है, कौन क्या कर रहा है। उनको पता था कि इसमें करेंसी का हाथ नहीं था, इसमें हाथ संजय था। तो मैं जीत गया। 3 लोग जीते, सिर्फ उत्तर भारत में थे, सारे लोग हिंदी wanted English. Only 3 people, one from North India. I won, Nathuram Nirtha won, and one person from Madhya Pradesh. Total wipeout. 150 members from the South won. There were no civilization there. None of the South chief ministers wanted to please Sanjay. And I had a very tough election at that time. No, that was in 1977. I also won my election from Udhampur again. Now, after 1977, the Congress split again, and he started the Indian National Congress Indira I, and many of us, myself, Y.B. Chauhan, Sardar Swarn Singh, C. Subramanian, very many senior ministers, we stayed in the Congress S. Swarn Singh. So Congress I, and then enter the Janata Dal. squabbling leaders, 3 महापुरुष थे, 3 लोग थे जो तीनों प्रधानमंत्री बनना चाहते थे। उनको क्षमता नहीं थी जरूर। एक तो मोरारजी भाई, अनस्पाइलिंग मोरारजी भाई, डोंट फॉरगेट हिम। और दूसरे चौधरी चरण सिंह, चौधरी साहब लीडर ऑफ द किसानों के नेता, सबसे बड़े नेता, जमीन से जुड़े हुए। तीसरे बाबू जगजीवन राम, सबसे दलित, सबसे बड़े दलित नेता जो रहे थे। 10 साल इंदिरा जी के कैबिनेट में मेरे साथ रहे, मैं उनके साथ बैठा। ये तीनों लोग उन्होंने छोड़ दिया था ना बीच में कांग्रेस को डेमोक्रेसी बना के। She left just before the elections. So those were the 3 people, and there was so much squabbling that Maharaja decided was the first one who made it. But then he fell. There was again division within the Janata. When Chaudhry Charan Singh became Prime Minister, I was in that ministry, but unfortunately that was the only ministry that never faced Parliament. Pehले resign kare, and then of course there was they were very mean to Indira. They said, "Isne hame jail dala, we are going to put her in jail also." They sent her to Tihar jail. They harassed her in every way. People didn't like that. People of India, they may be angry, but they don't hate. They didn't like the way that Indira was being treated by the Janata. And then she went on bail. She remember she went. There was some Dalit atrocity. Hathi पे चढ़ के गई हो गई. There was no way to get anywhere. And she started meeting. Hundreds of people every day would come and meet her, and she'd travel around the country. And then they had legal cases against her. They had a big vendetta. But even then, the Janata collapsed. And in the 1980 elections, she staged one of the most astounding comebacks in world history. Somebody who had been thrown out lock, stock and barrel 3 years before came back with a majority. And that was Sanjay's doing. Sanjay was the main architect of her victory also. He was the architect of her defeat. He was also the architect of her victory in 1980. He was the one who was working. He was all the time. She was the only one he could trust. He was the only one she could trust. And they got back to power. I had the toughest fight of my life because Congress and Sheikh Abdullah were together, and they put up a joint candidate against me in Udhampur. It was formidable. Indira ji तो एक आध बार आई, ज़्यादा नहीं बोली, लेकिन शेख अब्दुल्ला तो उनका किस्सा तो अलग है, किसी वक्त बताऊंगा। कायदे आज़म शेर कश्मीर शेख मोहम्मद अब्दुल्ला, वो तो हमारे, उन्होंने कहा मैं 500 सीट हारने को तैयार हूँ करण सिंह को हराना। देखेंगे बच्चों जी कौन हारता है कौन जीतता है, वो तो भगवान के हाथ में है, शिव जी का भक्त हूँ। So I won that election against India. Despite all of them there, I won by 50,000 votes. Which is I think probably the toughest election that I've ever faced. And meanwhile, I was mentioned some other things very briefly because I can go on forever. मुझे time दिया गया है 40 मिनट, तो वो तो हो गए होंगे खत्म। तो several things happened. Portal explosion happened in Indira this time. Have any of you seen that serial called Rocket Boys? Please see them. जिसने नहीं देखा हो, डिफेंस जी आप देखिए. Brilliantly made about Bhumi Bhabha and Vikram Saravanan, both of whom I knew well. I knew both of them well. Both of them died. Bhumi Bhabha died in an air crash, and Vikram died in Kovalam Beach Resort, where I built the other one. But this film is brilliantly made. And you must remember that the first beginnings of our whole nuclear program were made by Jawaharlal Nehru. He was the one who set up ISRO, or whatever it was called at that time. And then Indira took it up further and encouraged it, and encouraged these two great people, great scientists, and the Pokhran explosion took place. You got to see that serial. And that was a very major development. And the third thing that happened was the Supreme Court decided by 7-6 that the basic features of the Constitution cannot be changed. That was a boom. As a political scientist, let me say, if we are a democracy today, it is because of that one verdict. Keshavanand Bharati verdict, 6-7. Because had that verdict not come, they would have changed the Constitution by now. It would have been a democracy anymore. That was a great move. But there, I'm afraid, Indira was on the other side. She was against the judgment. But luckily, the judgment was there and remains to this present day. So we go on in time on 23rd of June 1980. 1880. Sanjay Gandhi's plane was flying just over my house. In fact, it flew so low that somebody working in the garden thought that he was landing on floor. Crashed 200 meters beyond my house. Sanjay was killed. That shattered Indira. She was never able to get over that, although she was very brave. Sanjay was in some ways her special child. She took it very well. Assam riots had started. There was a confrontation during Asian Games were held in her time. Non-aligned movement she presided over. Chogam Commonwealth heads of state she presided over. So when she was there, she did a lot of things. And then finally, there was the ultimate disaster of Punjab. Now, I am very close to the Punjab. My family rose to power because of Maharaja, Sher Punjab, Maharaja Gandhi Singh. We all grew up in the court of Maharaja Gandhi Singh, Lahore. And then there was a long history. There was inner party rivalry, I believe, in the Congress between Gandhi Singh and another one, the Jats and the non-Jats. I don't want to go into all of that. Ultimately, it was a terrible situation. My view is that the day that DGP Atwal was killed in the Golden Temple, if that day she had moved and arrested the leader of this group and put them all in jail, perhaps the ultimate thing may not have been necessary. That the people fought for what was happening there. It's all very fine now to talk about Pakistan, but when the movement went on, the sort of violence that was there, and the anti-Hindu violence that was there was unbelievable. So they all took finally shelter in the Golden Temple, and then there was a tragedy in the Blue Star. She had to bring in the army. She had to blow up the Akal Takht. I mean, the Akal Takht is the most sacred center for the Sikhs. She had to blow up the Akal Takht. And then large numbers of people died in that episode. And I then visited with Gyani Singh, visited Amritsar. I said I want to come also. So I walked around that. It was a terrible sight to see that Akal Takht in that position. Having been there from my childhood. That's what happened. And then after that, she realized that her life was in danger. So, during all these years, Indira was maturing gracefully. She was intellectually growing. With all her interest always in art and culture, whichever country she visited, she wanted to meet the artists. She loved Kashmir, but she had never seen Kashmir in the autumn, which is the most beautiful part in Kashmir. When the leaves begin to turn russet and gold, and the whole of the valley is on fire with glorious autumn colors. She went to Kashmir in August for the first time. She saw it, And then she went back, then she went to Odisha. And there's no better way for me to close this lecture than to read from a letter that was found in her papers after she died. I have never felt less like dying, and that calm and peace of mind is what prompts me to write what is in the nature of a will. If I die a violent death, as some fear, and a few are plotting, I know the violence will be in the thoughts and actions of the assassin, not in my dying. For no hate is dark enough to overshadow the extent of my love for my people and my country. No force is strong enough to divert me from my purpose and my endeavor to take this country forward. A poet has written of his love. How can I feel humbled with the wealth of you beside me? I can say the same of India. I cannot understand how anybody can be an Indian and not be proud. The richness and infinite variety of our conflict, heritage, the magnificence of the people's spirit, equal to any burden or disaster, firm in their faith, gay spontaneity, even in poverty and hardship. Thank you.
It is well known that this institution has a vast, well-established oral history. Dr. Karan Singh ji had some years ago given an interview which contains, I believe, some of the things that he has talked about today, but many more. That oral history transcript has now been edited, and we would like to use this special occasion to present a copy of that transcript to Dr. Karan Singh ji. So may I now request respected Director PMML Shri Sanjeev Nandan Sahai ji to come on the dais and thank you, sir, for that very, very enlightening lecture. Moving towards the end of this program, I would like to request our Vice Chairman, Dr. A. Surya Prakash, to deliver the vote of thanks. Sir.
Dr. Karan Singh, philosopher, veteran, parliamentarian and thinker and a founding member of this institution. Respected Shri Ripendra Mishra ji, the Chairman of the Executive Council of the Prime Minister's Museum and Library, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Our sincere thanks to Dr. Karan Singh for accepting our invitation and delivering the fourth lecture of the Prime Minister's lecture series on the life and times of Indira Gandhi. I am sure everyone here will agree with me that this was a truly enlightening lecture. It was an extraordinary evening, every moment of it well spent for all of us who were here, who had the privilege today of listening to Dr. Karan Singh. And his rare insights into politics, governance and life in this country over the last 75 years. And also, he is a person who has had a ringside seat to events that unfolded before and after independence. Dr. Karan Singh has seen it all from Jawaharlal Nehru to Narendra Modi and has commanded the respect of one and all for his erudition and knowledge. Thus, it has been one long continuum. In fact, I remember his book on Sri Aurobindo, titled The Prophet of Indian Nationalism, which he wrote when he was 31 years old and for which Jawaharlal Nehru wrote a foreword. In that foreword, Nehru said, quote, it is significant that he, that is Dr. Karan Singh, should have devoted himself to his studies and more particularly to the analysis of the political thought of Sri Aurobindo, instead of occupying himself with the normal activities of Indian princes, that is shikar, polo and high society. Truly an exemplary certificate from India's first Prime Minister. And as Dr. Karan Singh told us today, he did not go into shikar. On the other hand, he launched Project Tiger, which is a very, very critical project. And we all know where that project is today and how we have saved the tiger, thanks to that initiative at that moment. It's also an example of what all the good things one can do when one holds public office. Sir, on a personal note, I must say that I first saw you as Union Minister for Health and Family Planning in 1976 at a family planning event in Karnataka. I was representing the Indian Express. The audience was subjected to several boring speeches by the state ministers, officials in the health department and so on. By the time you got onto the podium to speak, media professionals in those days were rather sloppy in their attire and attitude and seemed bored by the proceedings. Dr. Karan Singh noticed this and made a general comment. He said, today's youth need proper guidance, training and discipline, because you often find them slouched in ungainly postures, quote unquote. Sir, I remember those words even till today, 47 years hence, and try to sit up and exercise self-control while being a member of the audience. Once again, sir, our sincere thanks to you for delivering this lecture today. I must also say that you referred to the abolition of privy purses and how that bill was lost in the Rajya Sabha. The bill was lost, sir, because just at the moment when the quorum bell rang, a member of Tamil Nadu, he was, I think, a film star, he had to rush to the washroom. When he came back, the doors were closed. And the privy purse bill fell. I think she later brought an ordinance. Also, I must say that I have been going through Dr. Indira Gujral's oral history, and he also talks about everything that happened on the morning of June 26, 1977, and you also figure in that conversation. Finally, sir, you are talking about how Indira Gandhi took a snap decision in January 1977 to order elections after having extended the life of the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies by 1 year. In fact, there is some discussion on in this country right now, and many people were wondering how you can extend the life of this thing. But the fact is, there's already a precedent to that. Indira Gandhi, during the emergency, had extended the life of Lok Sabha and the state assemblies by 1 year. In fact, just yesterday, I was talking to Gurumurthy ji, and he recalled something which would be of interest to you. In January 1977, Gurumurthy ji, the chartered accountant managing the affairs of Indian Express, he told Ramnath Goenka that I just have money to run this paper for 1 month. This was in January 77. Then Ramnath ji said, don't worry, something will happen. Soon, Indira Gandhi announced elections. Afterwards, Gurumurthy ji asked him, how were you so confident? Ramnath ji said, you must know I sent 2 astrologers to her who predicted a massive victory for Congress. So, sir, our heartiest thanks to you for being here this evening. It is a memorable event and lecture. And, sir, Kripendra Mishra ji, our chairman, I thank you very much for your guidance and leadership. Finally, a big thank you to every member of this distinguished audience. Your response to our invitations inspires us to organize programs of such significance and to get such eminent speakers like Dr. Karan Singh in our midst. Thank you.
ज्योति तो क्या हाल है? लिख रहा है, पढ़ रहा है।
बिल्लो
पदवा रहे तो सब मिले थे पहले से? क्या नाम?
मेरा नाम तारिक सैन है, मैं पीएचडी करना चाहता हूँ।
हमारे
अच्छा हाँ जी।
नेक्स्ट मेरा टॉपिक है ऑप्शन।
He was going to give us a lecture in this forum. Sardar Patel Memorial.
ओहो हाँ
I'm in that.
you were in that.
Suresh Goyal must have approached you. Suresh Goyal.
My problem was to encapsulate
It's so much.
material. It is so much. Hello beta.
Very
It was
good.
so nice to listen to yourself.
You liked it?
Yes, of course.
Are you student? कहाँ के?
We are from
बेटा कौन से स्कूल के हो तुम लोग? कहाँ है स्कूल? अलग अलग स्कूल से, केंद्रीय विद्यालय से।
नमस्कार दोस्तों, डॉक्टर करण सिंह जी हमारे साथ हैं, यहाँ मौजूद हैं प्रधानमंत्री संग्रहालय में, जहाँ पर जो है आज इंदिरा गांधी के ऊपर उन्होंने बहुत सी ऐसी बातें बताई। तो सर जी बहुत अच्छी शुरुआत है, क्या कहना चाहेंगे साहब आप आम दर्शकों के लिए?
दर्शकों में यही कहूँगा कि यहाँ आया करें। यहाँ जवाहरलाल जी रहे 17 वर्ष प्रधानमंत्री बन के, इन्होंने उनको जो उनकी हमारा संग्रहालय था उसका नवीनीकरण किया है, वो आके देखें। और अन्य जो आगे प्रधानमंत्री के लिए वो भी देखें। जितना लोग आएंगे, जितने समय बिताएंगे यहाँ, सब लाभ होगा।
इंदिरा गांधी के ऊपर आपने बहुत सी ऐसी बातें कही हैं, अनछुए पहलू जो किसी को मालूम नहीं था, क्योंकि आपके साथ अच्छा जीवन उन्होंने गुजारा है, तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। तो दर्शकों बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, थैंक यू वेरी मच। नमस्कार दोस्तों, आज हम प्रधानमंत्री संग्रहालय के बीच में मौजूद हैं। कभी पंडित जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी की ऑफिस और घर होता था, यहीं से पूरा देश चलता था। अभी प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने यहाँ सभी प्रधानमंत्रियों के कार्यकाल को लेके, उनके कामों को लेके यहाँ पर संग्रहालय बना दिया है। आज यहाँ पर इंदिरा गांधी के ऊपर लेक्चर था जिसमें डॉक्टर करण सिंह मौजूद थे। आइए हम सागर जी से बात करते हैं कि इस तरह की जो विजन और मिशन है इसको लेके जो बात चल रही है, ताकि जो है क्या क्या उस टाइम हुआ था प्रधानमंत्रियों के साथ, किस तरह से वो कार्य करते थे। जैसे आज करण सिंह जी ने इंदिरा गांधी के बारे में बताया, तो क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
देखिए, जो करण सिंह जी हैं वो एक महाराजा होने के साथ साथ ये 10 साल मिनिस्ट्री में रहे हैं, और इन्होंने जो पंजाब की हालत है या जो दूसरे बांग्लादेश में जो कुछ हुआ उस सब के ये गवाह हैं। तो इनकी बातों में जो रस आता है, और जब इंदिरा गांधी की सरकार फेल हो गई एक वोट से या जो भी है, तो जो उसके अंदर जो टेक्निकल पॉइंट हैं, तो एक इंडियन एक्सप्रेस के भी पत्रकार ने कहा कि वो तमिलनाडु का एक जो MP था उसको वॉशरूम जाना पड़ा। तो ये सारे जो चुलबुले से पॉइंट हैं ये किसी किताब में आपको नहीं मिलेंगे। ये करण सिंह जी के आप जब भाषण करते हैं तो उनके जो अपने पर्सनल जो उनका एक्सपीरियंस है, जो उनकी बातचीत है इंदिरा जी के, वो ख़ास थे। और देखिए, हरि सिंह जो है ये डोगरा ग्रुप बहुत मशहूर है। आप कभी भी वहाँ चले जाएं, वहाँ का मुसलमान हो या हिंदू हो, कोई भी हो, वो करण सिंह जी की बहुत रिस्पेक्ट करता है। वो कहता है ये हमारे महाराजा हैं, क्योंकि इनका जो व्यवहार था, इनकी जो बातचीत है, वो आपने देखा ही है। ये लोग बड़े संस्कारी लोग हैं, बड़े पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं, और इनका डिसिप्लिन है लाइफ में। और इन्होंने संजय गांधी, राजीव गांधी, इंदिरा गांधी, बहुत सारे प्राइम मिनिस्टरों के साथ बातचीत की है, एज ए फैमिली मेम्बर भी रहे हैं। तो इनके जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत ही सुखद है।
और यहाँ तक कि प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी भी इनकी बात को सुनते हैं और समझते हैं। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने इनके पिता के ऊपर जो है J&K में छुट्टी डिक्लेयर किया, तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। आज आपसे यहाँ पर मुलाकात हुई। थैंक यू वेरी मच दोस्तों। फिर एक नई शख्सियत के साथ दोबारा मिलेंगे, तब तक के नमस्कार, जय हिंद, वंदे मातरम, जय भारत।
थैंक यू, गॉड ब्लेस यू।